Hello everybody, so I'm going to make one more video on loops. So I want to explain a few things here. This is not totally different than what you're doing. You guys are basically reading a CSV file and then you're getting all the tickers and then you're putting them into a table. And so that's what this is. The tickers table will contain all of these values. You're just doing it by reading the file, so you're using the code to do that. I haven't gotten that many questions on that, so I hope that people understand that. So right now, I've got a file that is called tickers, and it will read, or it loads up these four things into this file. So if I wanted to, I could look at a single item here by, let me call it ticker. Let's call it ticker. So if I wanted to look at a single item here, I could just pull it up by the index number. Now, I also gave you guys code to pull up things by index numbers. So this is conceptual. You don't have to use this exact code, but I'm just trying to show you how these things can be done. So this would pull up the first record. So we'll call this, well, let's go put the S here. S is the table. Ticker is an individual ticker. So I've got ticker and tickers, right? So, whoops, there we go. So ticker equals tickers sub 0. So I can print and then see what comes up if this thing is 0. So I'm going to call this index. And then we'll call this index. Okay, so let me run this thing and see what happens. And then, all right, it prints MSFT. Now, what if I did index equals 1, and then let me move this code here so it's more obvious what I'm doing. Okay, so here, what's wrong here? There we go. All right. And then here I'm just going to change the index and then print this again. So this way I'm printing the second ticker. Okay, so I run it and then, okay, it did Microsoft and Amazon. And then I can change the index again to 2. Run it. And then I get IBM. And then finally, with index set to number 3, I'll get the fourth record. Equals 3. All right, and let me run this. Okay, so what I've got here is a bunch of code that is really basically the same. So what I mentioned in the lecture was that when you see yourself repeating code, you probably want to put it into some kind of loop. So let me just pull up some examples. All right, so how could we do this thing? The first type of loop that I want to talk about is called a for loop. And so how could you use that? Well, what I could do is say for item in tickers. And then what will this do? This will execute my loop. Let's see here. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, because it's wondering about this. Okay, so I can print item. All right, and then let me get rid of these print tickers here so as not to confuse the issue. So I run it, and then what does it do? It actually printed each one. So it just said tickers is a big list of things, and then it's going to print it. So now here's another thing you can do. You can say for item in range, and then specify a range, 0 to 3, or let's say 4. Okay, so I'm going to run this. And I'm laughing because my dog is dragging his dog bed across the room. He's going nuts. I'm going to have to walk him. Okay, so when I run this then, what happened? Well, it printed the item because it did the range. It didn't do for item in tickers. It did the range 0 to 4. So it printed 1, 2, 3. Now, it didn't print 4. This last number is kind of a limit. It doesn't actually consider this like inside the range. It's the end of the range. So it does 0 to 3. So I could do that. Now here's another thing I could do. I could print tickers, tickers item, like that. Okay, and what's it going to do then? Okay, so it treated this item. It said the ticker at the item number. It started with 0, 1, 2, 3. And it just printed each one. Okay, so hold on just a minute. My dog's destroying his dog bed now. Okay, so I'm back. All right, so that is various ways you can access things. Now, with your particular problem, here's what's going on, and this is what makes it a little tricky. Is that, actually, let me demonstrate one more kind of loop here first. You can do a while loop. So this is called a for loop because it has the word for. You can do a while loop and then say while some condition is true. So a while count is less than 4. Print tickers. And then use count here. Why did it not like? Oh, because count is. And so, and then I can increment it here. Equals plus equals 1. Okay, so what would happen here? It would start with 0, and then it's going to run this loop until count is no longer less than 4. So it works. That squeaking is my dog. He is going nuts. Okay, so now that's one way we could do this, but count is less than 4. We're hard coding values in here. That's not really good. There's a command called length, or len, which will tell us how many items are inside a table. All right, so, and then we can say that, well, count is less than, you could say less than len tickers, or set a variable. All right, and so we can say while count is less than table length. Now, what this is doing is this will run, basically it'll count how many items are in here and then run this thing the appropriate number of times, right? So these are ways that you can do this, but your situation's a little different because you have to read your CSV file, right? And then you pull in the tickers, and then you're going to what? You're going to read the open price, right? So I'm going to put these in as comments. And then read closing price. Then you'll calculate the gain or loss percentage. Okay, so then you'll do all this, and then what's the next thing you do? Then you write you create a new file and write first record. Okay, so what's the problem here? Is that, well, when we get into our loop, we don't want to create a new file inside the loop, or it'll create a new file every time the loop runs. We want to append inside the loop. So inside the loop, so we want a loop that will not do the first record, because Microsoft, in my case, got written when the file was created. So here's something we could do. We don't have to start count with 0. We could start with 1. Right? So here I could print like that. And then, why do you not like that? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we can do this and then do our loop, boom. And then here, what did it do? It wrote Microsoft up here, ticker 0, and then it set count equal to 1. And when we run the loop, then we did it from 1 to the table length. So everybody see that? Little trickeration here. So then inside the loop then, we're going to grab the ticker we want. Oh, and actually, what I'll show you a little more Pythonic way to do this. This is probably not how you'd want to do this. But you'd print the ticker, and then you'd do your, you'd use PyFinance. Okay, and calculate basically all this stuff. Except here, you would, whoa. So here you would not write the first record, you'd append the next record, right? Okay, and so we did a homework where we read, and then we wrote, and then we appended. So you should be able to do those. Review the homework if you can't remember how to do this. So we do that, and then we'd increment this, right? And so then instead of repeating this every time, we would put it all in the loop. So everybody see what's going on? So you look at, if you're repeating code over and over again, that's what goes inside your loop. Now, this count plus equal 1, the better way to do that is to do a for. And then probably something like count in range. Oh, we'd probably do like item maybe here, I. In range count. And then here, what I would do is put in this length, so table length. Like that. That's more Pythonic. Doesn't like it though. What doesn't it like? For I count. Oh, I probably, oh, count is there. I in range. What do you not like about that? It does not like that syntax. Why does it not like my for loop syntax? Let's see if I'm goofing up the range somehow. For I in range, count, comma. Oh, I've still got the less than symbol. That's what it was. Whew. All right. And so now when I run this, it should print everything. And it's got stuck on Amazon. So here is where, you have to sit there and figure out what's going on. What happened here was count got set. So it's not count here, it's I. Right? Because count is 1. And then we printed Microsoft up here. So it just printed 1 a bunch of times there. Okay, now it changed it I, because I is what changes every time it runs in the loop. So you don't need that plus equal. You can use a for, then set your counter in, and then set what range you want it to be. So you don't have to start with 0. You can start with 1. Wouldn't be totally unreasonable. Hard code a 1 here and hard code a 0 here. So you could do it that way. And run it. So really, if you read your file, load your table, most of the things I've seen, students have done that correctly. Then you have to get the open and close price, and then you have to figure out how many times you have to run the loop, right? So you write this first record. So actually, you okay, so you do your first record here, and we're just printing. It is one of the requirements of the midterms that you print these things in the console as you do them too. So then you do your first record here, and you figure out how many things are in this table. And then we're going to presume, now ordinarily you'd write in more error checking here. There's just only so many topics we can cover during a semester. So, and then loop, and then here you go. And then you'd run your loop some way, any way you want. Use it. You look at the different ways that I did it, and then you just run it, and then make sure you read start price, and then print the thing, and then you're done. So this is really like your actual code is only a few more lines of code than this. So but the read and write operations with CSV. So it's just two things. It's looping and then read and writing in CSV. So I'm going to change the class sections to distance only. So we're going to do those via Blackboard Collaborate. I'm able to help more people that way. I had a student that thought perhaps he'd want to keep meeting in person. It just like when we meet in person, it's not going to be that different than what I'm doing here. And the other thing is when we meet in person, I'm going to be tempted to touch your computer, which means I could make you sick, you could make me sick. We'd defeat the whole purpose of all this misery that we're doing with COVID. So unless something else comes up, and if you do absolutely need to meet me in person, shoot me an email and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. But at least for now, I'm going to stop meeting in the actual in-person portion of the class. So keep hacking at it. If you are not done with it by midnight tomorrow, why did you procrastinate? But keep doing it. Ordinarily, I would say, anything late is a 0, but with COVID, I'm inclined to accept things that are late and just give a really, really mean and over-the-top deduction for turning your stuff late. So keep working on it. I want to see people be coders. I've seen so many lights go on, like people are really getting it, but it took this. It took this assignment for people to buckle down and start figuring out the problem solving. So stick with it. You got the ones I've seen so far look great. A lot of people are getting 100% on this thing. So if you're not there, keep doing it. It's if you can read and write CSV files and you can make this loop work, that's it. That's the whole thing. So see you in class tomorrow, everybody.